What's going on, everyone? So I want to dive into this whole, LeBron versus Steph, who's been more impactful, who's the better player over the last 5 years. This was kind of spearheaded by Hoops Tonight and Jason Timpf, which he's one of my favorite people to listen to when I actually have the time to sit down and listen and watch some videos. But I love the way that he breaks down the game. I love the way he kind of, articulates his thoughts and, players and teams and all that stuff. He's one of the kind of better channels on YouTube in that regard. But obviously this has kind of evolved into this thing. I was even asked about it in my most recent live stream. And so I thought, hey, let's kind of put pen to paper here a little bit and kind of break this down. At least my opinion, my thoughts. Of course, I always want to hear your thoughts and opinions. So let me know yours down in the comments. But diving right into it, right? There's two kind of separate arguments, in my opinion, that I think are going on, right? There is the impactful, who's been more impactful the last 5 years, and then who's the better player. To me, those are two completely separate categories, right? Steph Curry, without a doubt, has been more impactful to the game based on the way that the game has kind of progressed with this space and pace, right? With the 3-point shooting and volume, teams trying to replicate, small ball and all the shooting. And you have teams like Boston that literally was setting records as far as like 3-point attempts and made field goals and all that stuff, right? Like Steph Curry in the revolution of this game in the 3-point shooting, yes, I think without a doubt, I think even LeBron stans would argue that Steph Curry, as far as impact to the game, is more impactful over the last, even 10 years. But again, the impact and being a better player are not the same things, right? Steph Curry is just the perfect prototype and just the perfect kind of player that was injected at the right time. It was kind of this chemical reaction to the way that the game was progressing, even slowly before Steph, but really kind of came on the scene and exploded, right? But again, that doesn't necessarily make Steph the better player, right? From any kind of argument standpoint, right? I think LeBron has been the better player, right? Like championships, right? That's usually what people look to. Oh, championships. Well, in the last 5 years, both guys have a championship. If you want to argue, Steph's is more important, more impactful or more impressive or whatever, I mean, I think you can argue the other way. I know there's going to be a lot of naysayers. The bubble doesn't count. Every player that's been in the bubble have talked about how hard it is. Like the only people that are like, the bubble doesn't count are fans that aren't Laker fans. But if any other team would have done that, there are several videos from all kinds of different players that have all said it was like one of the worst, toughest, most mentally draining experiences ever. But because LeBron and the Lakers won the bubble championship, everybody talks about it. And even all the arguments, I have yet to hear a good argument, even a coherent argument as to why the bubble championship doesn't count. Right? It's not like the Lakers had an advantage. It's not like the Lakers were like the worst team in basketball or the 8th seed or something like that before. They were literally the 1 seed. At one point, they were like 25-3 or something like that before the break. Like they had beaten the top like 3 to 5 teams in the league. They were the best team in basketball all season long. And went into the bubble and had the same playing field as everybody. I see people all the time that are like, there wasn't home court and all that stuff. So did the Lakers? The Lakers are the only team that had home court in Orlando. It's ridiculous, right? People just want to diminish what LeBron and the Lakers did. But the problem is when you do that, you no longer become serious, right? It no longer becomes a serious conversation, right? You could shred the Warriors championship in 2022 due to injuries but again, I don't believe in asterisks with championships, right? You can find flaws in every championship that has ever been won. Okay, so what happens if Tyrese Halliburton doesn't get hurt, right? Like, again, you look at the Warriors where, what happens if guys don't get hurt? Or, it's ridiculous. There's no asterisks. The Spurs with the lockout. It's not their job. It's their job to show up and beat the team in front of you, right? And every team that's won a championship has done that. No other team did it. If it was really that, why didn't other teams do it, right? Like, that team deserves the credit for winning a championship regardless. But you look at LeBron, you look at Steph, both have a championship during that time. Right? Okay, well then, stat-wise, because like Jason Timpf, like one of the things he talked about, like if you look beyond just the stats, right? Because LeBron overall, if you're talking points, rebounds, assists, he fished like LeBron. I mean, he had a season where he actually shot the three ball better than Steph Curry, right? Like, so okay, let's go beyond the stats. Let's not bring up the stats, because if you look at just the stats, then yes, LeBron is better in every way. Okay, well, again, what is the criteria that we're judging LeBron and Steph on? Because even from a team standpoint, I think you could argue that Steph Curry and the Warriors have had more stability over the last few years, from coaching to teammates to chemistry, right? Where look at LeBron and the Lakers. I mean, Anthony Davis. I love Anthony Davis, right? Anthony Davis is by far the best player in all of those, like between everybody on the Warriors and everyone on the Lakers, right? Not removing Steph and LeBron, right? Obviously, I'm talking about like co-stars, like teammates, things like that, right? So Anthony Davis, like LeBron had that, but Anthony Davis also had struggles with just injuries and staying healthy during several runs. In 2021, if Anthony Davis doesn't go down, Lakers might go back-to-back with an injury-riddled season. Remember, LeBron was on one leg. Dennis Schroeder was never the same when he got back from COVID, right? Even Andre Drummond ended up having like turf toe or something like that, right? Like he ended up having a toe issue. You go down the list of players, everyone's hurt. The Lakers were still up 2-1 against the Phoenix Suns. Looked like they were about to run away with it. They matched up much better against the Milwaukee Bucks than Phoenix did. And yet Anthony Davis goes down. Otherwise, who knows what would have happened? Also, from an organizational standpoint, right? Then you follow that up with the Russell Westbrook trade. That was just a total disaster. Right? And don't get me wrong, LeBron had a hand in that. Him, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook went to Anthony Davis's house. Again, you can look this up. You can Google it. They went to Anthony Davis's house, and they all agreed that they wanted to play together, and that Anthony Davis would play center, and that they would do whatever it took to make it work. That LeBron would play more off ball. He wanted to play more off ball anyway. All of that. And the Russell Westbrook situation was a disaster. But then you also had other hurdles where the organization just kind of got in the way. I still think, and obviously we don't have a way to know this, I still think, though, if the Lakers would have done the Buddy Hield and Miles Turner trade, right, Russell Westbrook and 2 firsts for Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, I believe that the Lakers probably win the NBA championship. One, they probably make other trades and moves. Maybe they still get like a Rui Hachimura, but they would have made other moves other than, the D'Lo, Malik Beasley, and which D'Lo was a no-show in the Nuggets series. He was actually really good and crucial in the other 2 series, but he was a no-show in the Nuggets series. Malik Beasley basically just fell off a cliff for the Lakers. And then Jared Vanderbilt was one of the real bright spots for the Lakers. And then Rui was kind of coming into his own. He was kind of hot and cold that year. But if you had Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, you have the shooting, right? So you don't need a Malik Beasley. You don't need a D'Angelo Russell, right? Austin Reeves still would have had his emergence because he had his emergence because LeBron went out and they needed somebody to step up. He still gets his emergence. So he's probably the guy that's operating in that kind of role for you. You still have Dennis Schroeder. So you would have like Dennis Schroeder, probably Buddy Hield probably would have started. You would have had LeBron James, Anthony Davis, right? Like they still would have had pieces. Oh, and then Miles Turner, right? So that would have kind of been your starting 5, which would have been much better balanced, right? Maybe the Lakers still go make a Jared Vanderbilt trade. Maybe the Lakers still make other moves. Who knows? But even if they don't, they match up so much better against the Denver Nuggets than they did previously, because you would have Miles Turner and Anthony Davis to throw at a Nikola Jokic, right? It might have been a very different series, right? But obviously we don't know if that could happen, right? But my point is, and the reason I keep bringing these up is because the organizational standpoint and the lack of consistency in roster turnaround and players and whatnot, right, has not been as good as it has been with the Warriors. Steph has had just more stability with Clay, Draymond, right? The role guys that they've had, right? Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins for several seasons, right? Like he's had more stability in that front than a team like the Lakers have had and LeBron James has had. Anthony Davis also, how many times do we need to see him step up and be the guy? How many times did he fail to do so? Think of how much LeBron has had to carry, right, on the Lakers, even with an Anthony Davis. How many times LeBron James has had to put the cape on when he shouldn't have had to do that, right? Another big kind of point and criteria that was brought up was the injuries, right? But Steph, a big problem that the Warriors have had is Steph not being healthy. I mean, they've missed the play-in and been a play-in team several seasons during the last 5 years because of Steph not being able to stay healthy. Last season even, he was unable to stay healthy, right? So again, to be like, well, LeBron, because of his age and stuff like that, and his lack of health is a problem, yes, but so is Steph Curry. But a lot of LeBron and the health issues could, just like Steph, right, for being honest, just like Steph has had to be because he's had to carry so much, right? There was the argument of like Steph has had to do so much and carry so much for the Warriors that it's kind of caused these injuries, right? But kind of ignored LeBron in the same thing. Now, if you want to argue Steph has had to carry more than LeBron, sure, because LeBron did still have that other superstar and Anthony Davis that, you know, on any given night could be the best player on the court, where Steph, he had to be the best player every night. But again, he still had more roster stability. He's had more, you know, the system, everything that they do in Golden State is all just tailor-made to him. Like all of these factors. And like, I feel a lot of the argument is just kind of, you know, quick rush, like, oh, hey, here, you know, it's because of this is it, right? Rather than more in depth, which I understand he was just doing like a little mailbag thing, just kind of like threw out his thoughts real quick, right? I'm sure if, you know, Timpf like dove into it more, I'm sure he could probably structure a better argument, because I feel like the argument for why Steph has been better the last 5 years, I don't think was a good argument for him being better. Now, if, you know, Timpf wanted to argue Steph has been more impactful over the last 5 years, because he titled it, Who's Been More Impactful? And I even said in my live stream, I haven't seen the video yet, right? I'll try to go check it out as soon as I can. But I said, based on the title of the video, he's arguing who's more impactful. I was like, if he's arguing Steph has been more impactful, then he's right, because there's a difference between who's better and who's more impactful. I think Steph, yes, has been more impactful the last 5 to even 10 years than LeBron James has been, but that doesn't mean that he's been better than LeBron James. Right? He's been more impactful to the game because of the way that the game has been played and operated the last years. So much so, even LeBron has evolved and adapted into playing more of that style, right? Look at his three-point attempts and percentage and all that stuff that has gone and upticked. Part of it's been he's just, you know, getting later in his years, and it allows him to kind of preserve himself. Part of it is it's just, you know, you gotta adapt or get left behind, and LeBron understands that, right? So, I mean, you even have centers and stuff that are shooting threes. Like, it's become a three-point analytic league, and a lot of that, not all of it, but a lot of that is because of Steph Curry and what he's done to the game. So, again, if you want to argue Steph has been more impactful, you're right. I don't even think there's an argument who's been more impactful, right? And I'm somebody that's on record that has said LeBron James, I believe LeBron James is the greatest player to ever play the game, right? This isn't about a GOAT debate. This is about just, you know, these two players in particular, right? But Steph, even though I think LeBron has been the best player, right? Steph has been the more impactful player, right? Where, you know, I think you look at LeBron and what he's done, like both guys have had to carry a lot, more than both guys should. If you want to argue Steph has had to carry more, but then that's also why, because you got to keep in mind, right? LeBron, like Steph is doing what Steph is doing without that co-star, right? But LeBron is doing it with that co-star. So usually the production drops a little bit because you have that co-star, right? Where, you know, Steph, he hasn't kind of had that other co-star, and Klay's had his decline and all that stuff, right? Like, I want to be fair to Steph, but Steph has had to basically carry the workload, which isn't right to him. I mean, they just got Jimmy Butler, Right? Like, and it's not fair to him. And even this whole Jonathan Kuminga situation, I don't think is fair to Steph. I think the only one that they're hurting right now is Steph Curry, and I think it's ridiculous, right? Like, sometimes you got to just cut your losses. But you're the guy that you're trying to try to make one last push with is the guy that I feel like you're hurting the most in Steph Curry because of this Jonathan Kuminga situation. But I don't want to get into that. I've talked about that on several occasions. Go watch some of the Jonathan Kuminga videos or even on As It Stands Sports where I break that down. But point is Steph more impactful. LeBron's been the better player, right? What has Steph done that has been better than LeBron the last 5 years? Because again, if you look at a stat standpoint, LeBron is better across the board outside of obviously 3-point volume and shooting and stuff like that, because that's Steph's thing. But like points, rebounds, assists, right? All of those things, right? The defensive, right? Like, it's all favored to LeBron, right? Okay, well, championships, right? That's the big criteria that everyone's out. Well, championships. They have the same number of championships the last 5 years, right? And whichever one you want to argue is better, I mean, it doesn't matter. They still both have a championship, right? They both still have the same number of championships. You can't go the championship argument, right? Like, okay, who would you rather have in a pinch right now? Like this season, going into this season, you had to build a team around somebody. Who would you rather have? LeBron. Because LeBron could play 1 through 5 position. He could, if you could use him as your point guard and then put a bunch of guys right. Like, he's just more versatile. He's also bigger. Like, he's still one of the best players in all of basketball, top 10 player at worst, right? Like, so, I mean, even like, what I think is funny is like, people be like, oh, well, LeBron's a top 10 player, right? Steph, some people, have him top 10 or have him like right outside the top 10. Okay, so then even like that argument, it's like, okay, well then, like, is Steph higher ranked than LeBron? Most people would say no. I mean, even Warrior fans would probably be like, no, like LeBron's just higher, right? Okay, so then that. Okay, well, what about like, potential accolades and stuff? Well, LeBron's been all NBA. He's been 6th in MVP voting, right? He's in the MVP race every year. He's in the all NBA every year, right? So like, again, what criteria are we using to make the argument that Steph is better than LeBron? Is it just the eye test? Well, again, Steph Curry's had to essentially be the guy. So if he's not averaging 35 a night, like, they're not very good. We've seen like when he's out or he's pedestrian, they're not winning games because he has to carry so much of the workload. So yeah, he's going to look better because he has to take all the shots to do all the things and all that stuff, where LeBron has had the luxury of Anthony Davis, but he hasn't had the stability from a coaching standpoint, right? From a player standpoint, to an organizational standpoint, to, even the co-star standpoint. Like, Anthony Davis has been incredibly inconsistent, even in the conference finals run, right? Like, it's been like Anthony Davis was inconsistent. Like, one game good, one game bad, one game good, one game bad, right? LeBron James has been in more conference finals. The last matchup in the NBA playoffs, LeBron won, right? And the Warriors were the defending champions that year. So it wasn't like Warriors were bums and the Warriors sucked that year. And Warriors were good that year, right? They just came off of beating Sacramento, who's the 2 seed, and, people thought we're going to do something. Defending champions going in the second round, and the Lakers won that series pretty handily, right? Like, so again, what is the criteria? Like, what argument is there that LeBron has not been as good as Steph Curry when he has better stats, more accolades, same number of championships, right? Like, what is it? Again, if you want to say Steph has been more impactful to the game, 100% you're right. Steph has been more impactful to the game because of how the game has evolved and adapted and what he's done and how he has, had his hand in influencing the game, right? Like, the game has essentially become a Steph Curry game, right? So yes, he's been more impactful, but that, again, impactful doesn't mean better, right? That doesn't mean that he's the guy, like, it doesn't mean better, right? So anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. as always, right? It's just my opinion. I'd love to hear yours. I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on this. But yeah, let me know down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.